all these promises she promised, that they promised, are broken. And these men are still in prison. Now we're measuring it in years.
Hello everyone, I'm with Bob Blayone. He was the candidate who ran as independent in the elections for Camrose. And I'm going to ask him about his analysis, his political analysis of the situation regarding the Coutts 4. People believe these 4 men are political prisoners because they've been spending more than 1.5 years behind bars without bail, and people are frustrated. They're trying to get their voice heard. I interviewed people, they say all they want is justice. Who could disagree with that? What is your analysis of the situation?
It's heartbreaking and tragic, and continues to motivate myself and my wife, Mocha, in doing what we're doing. The reason why we got involved in political advocacy and running in politics and dedicating our lives to this is because of the injustice, not just because of these 4 men, Chris Carbert, Chris Lysak, Tony Olenek, and Jerry Morin, but for all the people they were there fighting for, our fellow man. Mankind has been on its knees many other times in human history, and when the tyrants are viciously betraying our friends and neighbors, we absolutely have a duty to answer the calling, and I believe it is a price for freedom and for living in a country where I grew up and where people come to for freedom and for the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If I can coin our friends to the south, their principle and their value down there.
When I interviewed you, it was Kenny's government in power, and in that fundraising, the general consensus, at least what I heard, what I understood, was that we're not going to vote for a government that is not going to, take care of this issue.
Right.
We're going to become the parade that they want to get in front of. We're going to become the polls that they have to get in front of to be elected. If a politician wants to get elected in this province, they better be standing up for what's right. Otherwise, we won't vote for it.
Yeah. And now we have a new conservative government, the UCP, under Daniel Smith's leadership. And do you see any action coming from the UCP?
No, I see no action. I saw a lot of political theater, which was frustrating for me. These promises, these empty promises that the politicians put out, it is the same UCP government. And the political theater for me that really frustrates me is go back right to the beginning of when this betrayal started happening to us. We had to wait for the Kenny leadership review. And then we had to wait for the UCP leadership election. And then we had to wait until Daniel Smith was re-elected with a majority, even though they were already a majority government. And now I'm hearing, well, we can't, so the UCP, the people that are involved in the United Conservative Party, our friends, our neighbors that are caught up in this political theater, now they're saying things like, we got to wait for the UCP AGM, annual general meeting, in September. I'm sorry, but here's how it works. The government of Alberta, I do not care if it's Kenny or Smith at the helm, they are part of that government table as a premier, the ministers of the government. So their job is to make sure that all the rights and freedoms of Albertans are being respected, right? And that's not happening. It didn't happen under the Kenny regime. It's not happening under the Smith regime. All these promises she promised, that they promised, are broken. And these men are still in prison. Now we're measuring it in years, 1.5 years now. When are they going to stand up? When are they going to advocate as elected representatives of these men and their families? When are they going to do this? And so I get very angry every time I start talking about this. We should all be angry about this, because if it can happen to them, it could happen to any one of us or our loved ones. Dana and I, my wife and I, just had this conversation a couple days ago. We talk about this every day. So I went to Coutts the last couple days, Mocha, and I was ready also to go to prison if it meant doing that to stand up against that regime and this regime at the time. That's where I was at. And now we have the conversation. Can you imagine if it would have been me? It could have been you, any one of us. And so as far as the media goes, that's another disappointment for me.
What I'm seeing is that the government is trying to make an example out of them to give a message to the rest of the population, hey, we are in power, you cannot even think about doing such a thing, conspiracy to commit murder on our city. That's what they are being accused of. And I think they're making an example out of these four. And that's why it's an interesting topic. I like to interview people. I like to hear them articulate their perspective. But I was in the courthouse. I've been there for 3 days. It was a 5-day trial, but I was able to be there for 3 days, and I was inside there. And there's a lack of media coverage. Mainstream media is completely black out. It's not there, and I don't understand why. Why is this case where 4 men who have been in remand for almost 1.5 years is not getting any media coverage?
So I guess it's an unofficial pillar of government now, media, isn't it? And they will only report on things, and I don't care what side of the political spectrum you stand on. Both sides fall for the same theater. So they won't, neither side will report on this because it's a hot topic. It's like these Albertans, these Canadians are being, their rights and freedoms are being betrayed viciously. And I was there too, and I did not see any mainstream media there. And it's interesting that the media, the mainstream, are funded by taxpayers. You think that they'd have some sort of allegiance to just report the truth. Just give it to people in its entirety. Right? Don't twist it, and don't imply that some of these men are guilty. You have no business doing that as a journalist. Report on the truth and leave it alone. Show up to do that, though. That's number one.
Yeah, I think, I interviewed people and I told them, look, I am impartial. I have to be impartial. I'm independent. I don't know if these men are guilty or not. There are lots of publication bans on it, but my interest was to let people speak, let families speak, and all they want is justice. Who could disagree with that? And right now I'm seeing, I don't know if you agree with this, I want you to give me your perspective on this, but I see that we're getting into a new period in time where now the government controls the media and dictates what media is allowed to do, allowed to cover. There's this dependency. But I thought it was supposed to be the other way around, where the government was supposed to be under the thumb of the media, not the other way around. And I think the best example is with the Coutts 4 story.
Absolutely.
Both sides of the political spectrum, they are completely silent. They want this issue to go away. They don't want people talking about it. Why? Why is there this silence? Why is it so hard for the government, for the UCP government, for the Conservatives to come out in support?
Like you said before, Mocha, I believe they're just sending a message because it was the UCP government that was, abusing Albertans. They were doing it. They know it. All Albertans knew it at the time. And these men stood up against that. And, political prisoners, making examples of citizens to not push back on their decisions. That's what they're doing. And so the longer they keep these men in there, the government's getting away with doing that, sending a message to the freedom movement that, and it is a fear, because fear compels people to do things or not to do things, and it clouds judgment and whatnot. So now you get, I believe, a lot of people that are reluctant to speak up in general, and the media is afraid to weigh in also because they don't want to lose support. I've been told that. Like, if they report on this, they're going to lose support. Or other issues. That is, again, unacceptable. If you want to be a journalist and report on everything. If you want to be a political collaborator, then go work for the parties, like what's happening now. Left wing, right wing, they both have their camps, and that's frustrating. And those two camps are failing all Canadians.
We have echo chambers.
Yes.
Yeah. There's no communication going on anymore between two different parties or two different ideas.
Not at all.
Yes, that's concerning. And before I wrap up, do you have a message to Daniel Smith, to the Conservatives, to supporters, to people who are saying, I don't want to touch this issue, they're charged with serious, they're just charged, they're not convicted.
Right.
But, Because I asked you this question in January back then, and you gave a very good answer, and I wonder if your answer changed by now.
Evolved. It maybe evolved somewhat, but I don't think so. I mean, it's just things are, as the days go by, then the level of frustration grows, not only me, but I cannot imagine being these men and their families. There is absolute, a lot of the evidence now is questionable, so that's what's changed. And you know, the truth is slowly coming out behind the scenes, but here's my message to Daniel Smith, to all other UCP MLAs, to the NDP MLAs, to the CPC MPs, to the Liberal MPs, to the NDP MPs, is do your bloody job and advocate for the people that you represent, and make sure that their rights, freedoms, and their lawful process is respected. That's it. That's all. If you can't do that, then step down and move out of the way. But continuing to not talk about this case, that these men have been now in remand for 550 days. A remand, that process is supposed to be short and quick. These men are in their cells 22 hours a day. They're eating garbage food, and here's another thing that's coming up from, that's shedding a light on this. The contractors that supply the centers and that, they're contracted. And it's abysmal conditions. It's third world conditions. It's torture, right? So that's another thing they don't want to shine a light on, the politicians on both sides. We know how broken of a time we're living in, and we just need elected representatives to do what they used to do and be statesmen rather than politicians. Politicians think about the next election, playing it safe. They don't want to roll up their sleeves and get, you know, and do the dirty work and take a risk for people. They sit back in the weeds and see what the general consensus is, and then they act. I'm sorry, but that's a failure.
And who creates that general consensus? Who has the buttons to press? It's the media.
The media. So you consider, before the publication ban came out, whammo, CBC puts out that damning information, right? And, you know, implied guilt to these men before they had their day in court, before they had a proper bail hearing. Go back right to the beginning. That never happened yet. And evidence came from after that happened, but it's just so wrong. It's just an evil, evil thing that's happening to these men and their family. It really is. And I'm thank you, Mocha, for doing what you're doing and taking on these stories and getting the word out, because that's what it's going to take, is just sharing it with people. Because a lot of people in our day-to-day discussions, this comes up all the time, and they're shocked, they're appalled to understand what's going on with these men. And it's a very simple conversation, and that's another message for the politicians. Have the conversations. Don't shy away from them in day-to-day life. Stop taking, you know, your photo ops at rodeos and whatnot, and do your damn job. And get down there and meet with these men and their families. Go talk to them. Stop turning your backs on them. Reach out to them and have a conversation.
Thank you so much for having the time, coming to Calgary and doing this interview. I appreciate it greatly. And the folks out there, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. And if you would like to support me so that I can be able to do this kind of work, bring you the stories that other media refuses or fails to bring, please consider checking out mediabizirgan.com for more news coverage. And if you'd like to support me, consider making a donation at mediabizirgan.com/donate. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.